Hey everybody, welcome. Today we're going to look at ways to extend the linear feel of a layout by avoiding what I like to call scenic traps. What a scenic trap is it's an area on the layout where you're forced to reverse direction because of the constraints of the room that you're building in. It happens at the end of aisleways, it happens at the end of peninsulas, and it can completely destroy that illusion that we're going from point A to point B on a layout. So there's a few easy ways to fix that, and there's some few complicated ways to fix that. The easy ways I'm going to show you. The complicated ways, or the more involved ways, I cover extensively over on the members side of the channel if you're interested in joining up and learning a little bit more. Let's start with the outside turn, and I'll show you the quickest and most effective way to avoid that scenic trap on an outside 180. All right, so here we are up at Burmese here. Burmese is a 27-foot long siding. It occupies the bulb at the end of a peninsula. From this side to the opposite side is about 6 feet, and there's a backdrop running down the middle of it. Now that's the simple way to fix that linear feel and to avoid that scenic trap, is throw a backdrop down the middle of your peninsula so you can't see to the other side of it. There is a little bit more to it than that, but that's the gist of it. Is in a situation like this, you want to make sure that you can't see to the other side for two reasons. You don't want to see that train wrapping around 90 degrees or 180 degrees because it doesn't make any sense. Also, if you're doing an op session, the most distracting thing that you could possibly see when you're operating a train is my face looking back at you from the other side of a peninsula. So simple way to fix it, get yourself a backdrop, run it right down the middle. Now there's a little bit more to it than that because the track is curving. It's doing that 180 degree turn back loop. You have to determine why it is. As I said before, trains want to go straight as possible, as level as possible. In this situation, what I did to make it look like the curve should be here is I'm following undulating scenery. I'm low in the front here, swampy area, and it rises to the back. On the backdrop, I've painted hills and scenery that rises up. So there is a reason for this to be skirting around the outside of something, avoiding this swampy area here. And as we go to the west, I've taken that marshy area and I've gone right from the fascia beyond the track almost to the backdrop. So in essence, what the railroads had to do here is they've had to build through this area. They're trying to bypass, get over it as quickly as they can. Material has been taken from here. It's been placed here so that they can get over top of the marsh and back onto solid ground on the other side here. So the reason for the curvature is because of the nature of the topography here. And as we get around the curve, we get to the Burmese crossovers here. This is about 10 feet from the head end, 10 or 11 feet from the head end. We also have an industry here. Now this industry wouldn't be possible, or it would look out of place, if we could see directly through to the other side of the layout here. In fact, if we were looking from here directly 90 degrees across the scenery, if there was no backdrop, we would see the head end power facing this way, which would completely blow that whole linear feel here. So by placing a backdrop down the center of the peninsula and separating the scene, we've created a much stronger linear feel to the layout here and avoided that scenic trap. So those are the bare basics to a peninsula. Divide it down the center so you can't see from one side to the other, and justify the loop at the end with topography. Aisleways are a little bit different animal. Now, of course, an aisleway presents you with the opportunity to do a horseshoe. Now, most people don't model a horseshoe curve. That's the one exception to this rule, or the rules I want to share with you here. Of course, if you're doing horseshoe curve or say Trinidad Loop in Washington, you're going to want scenery around there. Now, the difference to that is that you're gaining elevation. So again, topography is justifying the direction of the track. If you're going from level track to level track and just going from, say, north 180 back to south again, it makes no sense as far as linear travel goes. So there's three things you can do to minimize a scenic trap down at the crotch, for lack of a better term, of the aisleway. The first one is to use very bland, mundane, nondescript scenery at the end. Don't put industry in there, nothing like that, because your eye is going to focus right on there as the train wraps around it. That's the first thing you can do. That's the easiest thing to do. I use the second and third methods here. The second method being cap off the end of your aisle. So I've got a false wall here. It's painted the same color as my fascia. And what that does is it breaks up the scenes. It breaks this scene up from this scene. You go and you look at this and then immediately scan across here and here. So you're not trapped in that corner. One cool thing to that is if you build it out far enough, you can go straight in and straight back out. So you don't have to justify that turn back loop. In fact, it doesn't even seem like a turn back loop. Now, the downside or the weakness to that one is that this scene and this scene on each side of the aisle are still connected by length of train. So if you employ the third method, you can eliminate that completely and get a 100% effective linear flow. Now, the third method is you make sure that there's enough track between here and here that your longest train is hidden. So you never have the tail end of a train here and the head end here. If you're only using method number 2, this and this are connected by length of train. If you can hide the train in here, this and this can be separate by 5, 10, 15, 20 miles, whatever you want. So it gives you the opportunity to model a completely disparate scene that's not connected physically, even by length of train. All right, so the last one we're going to talk about is the inside 90-degree curve. And I've got one here at the top of Drawbar Alley. S-curve coming up through here, turn 90 degrees, crest the top of the grade, and eventually onto the east switch at Burmis. Now, the 90-degree differs from the 180 in the sense that there's only one option with the 90. You got to let the scenery tell the story. So you got to make sure that there's a reason for that 90-degree curve to exist. And in this case, you can see that there is. We've got a hillside coming down, we've got our roadbed, and then the hillside drops down. So we're clinging to the side of a hill here, and that hill comes this way, so the track has to follow that hill. Got 2 minor little cuts here, and we've got a little bit of a fill in between them, so this is a cut and fill. So the scenery is telling the story here. Now, in the segment on the 180 degree, option 1, I said you want mundane scenery, and that's not the right term. The term that you want is you want consistent, uniform scenery. So if you look here, we've got somewhat uniform scenery across here. Nothing is grabbing your attention. Nothing stands out, and that's a good thing because you're not getting trapped into that corner. However, the nature of this forces you into that corner. It's like an amphitheater. You're coming this way and you're coming this way. And our 2 lines of sight are going to converge right behind the apex of the curve in this area somewhere. That's why it's important that this scenery doesn't have anything of great detail. Otherwise, our peripheral vision is already drawing us into here. If there was something detailed in this area, we're going to fixate and focus on that. We're going to get stuck into that scenic trap. Now, because this scenery is somewhat uniform, mundane, whatever you want to call it, you're still going to get a little bit of what I like to call a bog down. The eyes are coming in here. You're searching around for something that's going to catch your interest. Nothing really does because it's so uniform and similar all through here. So what happens is the brain decides it just wants to move on and look for something of more interest in a different location. Recognizing potential scenic traps and avoiding them is just one step towards establishing the linear field that we're all shooting for in a model railroad. Many other factors also contribute, such as the placement of geologic features, using specific color and texture patterns, the perspective in which the backdrop is painted and viewed, and even the color and contour of your fascia. If you're interested in learning more about the techniques I use to enhance the linear footprint of my layout, consider becoming a channel member. You'll get access to well over 100 members exclusive videos, with many of them covering in detail the principles of linear flow, with the latest topic being the use of tree lines to guide the eye beyond a scenic trap. And if membership doesn't blow your kilt up and you still dig the video, by all means, hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. We'll see you in the next video.